Welcome to Saturday Simulcast, GoldandBlack.com, Saturday Simulcast for August the 17th. Just a couple short weeks away from the Purdue football season opener. Tom Dienhart will join us in the second segment here today. Brian Neubert will join us as you see him now. Talk a little bit of football, a little bit of basketball. I want to thank the Union Club Hotel, 811 Bistro, Boiler Up Bar, Leaps Coffee, and of course a brand new spa that Brian has not gotten over there yet, but he's working on it.
I have an appointment later today.
That will be good. A good massage
Get my
and
nails done.
Perfect for you. And thank
chewing them doesn't work. So
I know it doesn't, but
I
that's
need
why
to call in the professionals.
That's why you need it. So, but great spot. We had celebrated a birthday. We're lucky enough to celebrate a birthday this week at the chef's table. That was quite an experience. This week for a wonderful dinner at the 811 Bistro. So
my dog is very excited about the bistro.
Yeah,
as you can tell.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. All right, Brian. Obviously, 2 weeks away from football. I know football is not your daily ponderance, so to speak, but you certainly have an idea of what may be next. From a broad stroke perspective, Purdue's got good. I think that they're playing Indiana State to start the season. There's still a lot of question marks when you have all these new players. What do you, when you're looking at this year, what do you start to look at from that standpoint?
Yeah, I think you want to build. I mean, I think, obviously, I don't want to be too, people would call me negative about it, but it's a tough deal right now for most of the teams in the Big Ten. This is a competitive landscape that is very, very challenging. And, you aren't just going to wake up one morning and be Ohio State or Michigan or Penn State or Oregon or USC. You want to show some positive momentum toward, kind of establishing yourself in that robust middle.
Right.
There's a lot of teams kind of in that tier below those kind of name brand programs. And I think, Purdue getting to the place where it's more often than not better than Minnesota, better than Indiana, better than Illinois, Rutgers, Maryland, Michigan State at times, certainly UCLA. I think, one of the big breaks of all this for Purdue, the only break for Purdue is getting Indiana and Illinois as your protected rivals. That kind of offsets a little bit of this thing of the Big Ten West going away. But I think, every win is gold from here on out for Purdue and for a lot of these teams in the Big Ten. I think having Indiana State on the schedule is a great thing. It might not be the most exciting game of the year. Fans may not necessarily be counting down the days to see the Sycamores play, but I think you got to schedule some wins here, kind of from here on out. And I think nowadays, when you're implementing or onboarding so many new players in that opener, I think having that kind of de facto exhibition game is a great thing and a really valuable deal. And I'm not saying that to suggest that Indiana State can't beat Purdue. I mean, we've seen Purdue damn near lose to Indiana State before. Those were very different times, but I think that I think it's a good thing, and I think that Oregon State game is really interesting because that travel in the middle of your non-conference season is perilous. We saw Purdue go out to Nevada a couple of years ago, lose that game, and everything went sideways after that. We saw Purdue in 2009 go to Oregon, lose that game, and things kind of crumbled from there. It can go both ways for you probably, but you just want to beat those teams, obviously. And then if you can pull an upset or two here and there, get back to a bowl game, something like that, that would be positive momentum. I think we're in an era now where I think people need to rethink their definition of success. I don't know if it's 9 or 10 wins anymore. I think getting to the postseason, having a winning record, having a 500 record is a pretty big deal nowadays because the Big Ten is such a meat grinder, as would the SEC be. So there's a lot of teams in those two power conferences now that are sort of in the same boat. So that's kind of
Yeah.
my
Yeah, I
general
mean, I
primer
think
on the
that's right. I
football
mean,
season.
you look at it and you say the Vegas has Purdue at 4.5 wins as it's over under for that. And yet, you pointed out in the column a couple of weeks ago about it's still hard. I know Purdue's picked 18th, at least in the Big Ten or the Cleveland.com poll or whatever poll that was, whatever that means. I think it's a futile effort, though, to be able to really predict because of the 27 new players or whatever it is at Purdue. And Purdue beat Minnesota, Indiana, Illinois, as you pointed out last year, and yet
Yeah.
all those teams are picked ahead of Purdue. It doesn't necessarily matter, but there is a little bit of egg on your face when you're picked to be 18th out of 18 teams.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I'm distracted by my dog here. I apologize.
It's all
Um,
right.
no, I obviously don't want to criticize the writers for how they voted, but I feel like Purdue didn't get credit. And I'm not carrying water for Purdue here and saying
No,
Purdue's going to be
understood.
better than that bottom tier of the league, because it's a perfectly reasonable expectation to suggest Purdue would be in that bottom tier. But Purdue played Minnesota last year, kicked their face in. Purdue played Illinois last year, kicked their face in. They played Indiana last year, and that was a game that Indiana had to have to save its coach, and Purdue won that game. And I think Purdue might have beaten Northwestern if Hudson Card played.
Yeah.
Northwestern had a great year last year, but Hudson Card didn't play that game. So who knows how that would have turned out. I just think Purdue's not getting credit for that. I think Purdue's not getting credit for having a good quarterback, like an NFL talent at quarterback. He's got to stay healthy, obviously. He's got to have a great year. He's got to have one of those years where he makes everyone around him better. But I also don't think Purdue's getting credit for the possibility that in year two under a new coaching staff, things are better. Everybody's more comfortable with everybody else, stuff like that. But I don't want to say that Purdue should be like top five. But I don't think 18th or whatever they were, second to last, is necessarily. Is that where they were, second to last?
No, they're 18th. They're 18th. They're
Last,
last.
dead
Mm-hmm.
last. Yeah, I think that's just. I think that's just you have to put somebody there, and I think a lot of writers are probably everybody's publishing their ballots nowadays, which I think is great,
Yeah.
because I think
You were one of the first.
transparency is important
Yeah.
on that kind of stuff. But I don't think anybody wants to put the team they cover last because they just don't want to deal with the drama that comes with that stuff. So whether it be from fans or the people you actually cover. So I think maybe that has something to do with it. Purdue's kind of a convenient target there. But no, I just think Purdue's not getting credit for some of the positive things they did last year. And they did do some positive things last year. The season did not go as it would have preferred, but there were some important wins there against people you need to beat to get to where you want to go.
Yeah. And you look at that, and from a coaching standpoint, year two of coaches, and Ryan Walters obviously still 38, 38 years young and in year two with a huge job ahead of him. I'm not asking necessarily to evaluate him but it is a guy that appears to be working well at recruiting. Looks like for the most part, and has got a lot of energy that he's brought to this program. But where do you see him in year two, and what does you talked about the program needing to show some positive momentum? That obviously translates to what that would mean for Ryan Walters as well, I assume.
Yeah, and part of the point I didn't make about like the preseason poll just now is nobody knows anything because everybody's got 20 transfers coming in, 15 of which are going to have to play. Nobody knows what to expect any of that stuff. And I think Purdue has a pretty good situation going in terms of having a staff that's pretty compatible with that sort of year-to-year environment in terms of being able to attract guys out of the transfer portal. And you have to be able to onboard them right away. You have to be able to identify them quickly. Nowadays, you have to be able to have an NIL set up where you can get them, stuff like that. And I think Purdue's done a lot of things right in that regard. Sometimes the job is too big, even when you have the right guy, sometimes the job is just too big. And I don't think Ryan Walters took over a program in a great place. I've always compared the Brahms to like house flippers where they throw a coat of paint on something, in a very short period of time, and it looks like something very different than what it actually is below the surface. And I don't think the talent level was in a great place. I don't think the culture was in a great place. And, I think this is more of a building job than, people necessarily recognize, because Purdue had some success under the Brahms there those last couple of years. Success relative to their place in the world, things like that.
Right.
I mean, the
And
final
relative
record
to when he
was,
came in. Yeah.
yeah, the final record wasn't great, but it was more about experiences and moments than it was about the actual record at the end of the day. Um, but no, I think he's doing a lot of things right. Um, as I said before, the Big Ten now is a lot of these teams are waking up in the morning with 5, 6 losses on their schedule.
Mhm.
It's just the reality of it. It depends on your non-conference season, how many wins you can get out of that. And then it depends on how you can fare against your peers. And I think that's how you kind of define success nowadays, in a lot of ways. Can you beat Northwestern, Minnesota, Indiana, Illinois, Rutgers, UCLA on a consistent basis? Nobody in this league is more competitively compromised than UCLA.
Yeah.
That's the one you really have to kind of point at and laugh at, for lack of a better term, because they're in trouble in the Big Ten. But Purdue is certainly one of those teams too that's not going to benefit outside of that check that comes in every year from having, Oregon and Washington and USC in the league now, on top of all the teams that were so hard to climb over before. It's just a really, really daunting competitive landscape. But this is what TV has done to college football. It has sold a lot of people out competitively, but you don't feel bad for them because they're making a lot of money off of it. But if you're a fan and you're thinking, oh, hey, this is the year we get 9, 10 wins, that's a tall order. It was a tall order before. It's a really tall order now.
Yeah. Purdue has only had one 10-win season in its history, 1979. It is not easy for Purdue. I want to switch gears quickly to men's basketball. Of course, the Boilermakers, August, a little bit of a quieter month in some ways, but practice will begin again next week. It's so different now. I mean, I'm older than you and used to that back in the day, that October 15th starting date. Obviously, that's been long since gone. But what do teams accomplish now as they kind of phase their way into the meat of the practice schedule with late August practices? And what do you think, Matt Painter and company? What will be priorities for them as they continue to get ready for the 24-25 season?
Well, yeah, the October start of practice date has always been kind of a redundancy, because you've had X number of hours per week for the last few years, where you can actually have full team practices. What happens in October is you could just practice more.
Yeah.
You can practice every day. But no, this is, an off season of transition for Purdue. Obviously, after last year was pretty much, you have the team, the team you have. Purdue's got young guys coming in, obviously now, like they did 2 years ago with Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer. They're not going to need any of these freshmen to really be, among your best players, anything like that. You need depth. You need those guys onboarded. You need those guys fitting into roles. Jakari Harris, CJ Cox, whoever's playing in the front court, probably Daniel Jacobson at this point. Him and Will Berg are going to have to, one of those guys is going to have to play, if not both of them. But I think you retool your offense a lot this year, and I think that's going to be really interesting to watch, because Zach Edey was your everything at both ends of the floor, but on offense you built everything around getting the ball inside to him first, and then playing off of that. It wasn't just get the ball to Edey and he shoots it. It was, that's your starting point. And now, Trey Kaufman-Renn slides into that. I keep calling it one of the best jobs in college basketball, as Purdue's primary post option offensively. And I think you scheme some things a little bit different to get him in some different positions and then play off of that. I think you run more stuff that Braden Smith was so good at last year in terms of ball screens. With Trey Kaufman-Renn, maybe with somebody else, you get a little bit creative. I've never drawn up a college basketball playbook in my life, but I think that, Camden Heide offers some pretty intriguing kind of pick and roll options. We'll see if they explore that at all. Miles Colvin is going to be empowered more to be part of this offense. You're going to run more stuff from him. You're going to run more stuff to get Fletcher Lawyer the ball in positions to do something with it. He's going to have to be more aggressive and more productive. There's just no way around that. You're going to have to figure out your lineups. I think you're going to start Trey Kaufman-Moran at center. Doesn't mean he has to play like a center, but I think that's where they start. But I think you're going to want a bigger lineup, 2 to go to at times. That's going to mean, is Wilt Wilberg ready to help you? Is Daniel Jacobson ready to help you? Things like that. So that's kind of it is a really important offseason. It is a really important fall for Purdue on the practice floor. Not just because of the freshmen, but because of all the moving parts on this roster.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing to watch as Brian continues to report on that and talk about that, but also as we get closer to October and November when basketball will be going full force. So, all right, Brian, I only asked you one basketball question, but you answered it well, because as you often do, and we appreciate that. Tom Dienhart will join us and give us a little more in-depth look at Purdue football and practice this week as Purdue readies for that Indiana State game. A reminder, as Brian would want me to do, you can subscribe. We do have a website that we would love to have you become a member of at GoldandBlack.com. Brian does excellent work, as does Tom and other contributors to the fray. There'll be some special promotions coming up as we head into week one as well. Keep an eye out for that. But if you haven't subscribed, now's the time. And we got nearly 5,000 folks that think it's a good idea. It's a great community, and we hope that you'll join us. And also, you can like us and leave we prefer a positive comment if you have that with respect to our YouTube and or iTunes, Spotify projection of this show. So Tom will join us in a minute. Brian, thanks a lot, and we'll talk more, I'm sure, next week. Segment 2, joined by Tom Dienhart. Tom has been a busy man with practice, et cetera, and trying to get a handle on where the 2024 Boilermakers are going to be heading into that opener 2 weeks from today against Indiana State, a noon kickoff. Tom is a morning guy, so he'll be ready with his coffee. He'll be down. He'll be ready to go. I hope Purdue students, if you're a Purdue fan, that they'll get up and be ready to go. Tom, season ticket sales have been great. It is Labor Day weekend. It is, but it is the season opener. And as Brian pointed out in segment 1, there's a lot of advantages, I think, for this team to at least have on paper what should be a team it can easily handle. But we can find out some things about some players. How do you look at that from the perspective of having watched a little bit of practice every day?
Yeah, you just almost like an exhibition game. At least that's the ideal hope if you're a Purdue coach or a fan, right? A chance to sort of maybe play a lot of players, maybe have the game in hand by the third quarter, late in the third quarter, maybe at halftime, Allen, who knows? Don't want to disrespect the Sycamores, alma mater of Tunch Ilkin, Glenn, two only Sycamore NFL players I can think of. But I digress. So, yeah, you'd like to sort of use it as an exhibition, come through healthy, obviously, right? And then you got 2 weeks to prepare for Notre Dame. And things get a lot bigger, obviously, after this opener. But again, you want to not show too much, stay healthy, see if you can get the game in hand and play a lot of guys, get your starters out and get the W and move on to bigger and more difficult things after that, Alan.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, you did report on Friday that Cam Brown made an appearance in uniform, and I think he had shoulder pads on based on the picture.
He wasn't. He was just No, he was just catching passes. He wasn't
just catching passes. Okay, yeah. But injuries are obviously, there was an announcement of a couple of guys earlier this week that are going to be starters, in all likelihood that will be out for week one. But talk about that. It's kind of a daily. That's kind of one of the things you do a great job of reporting and counting who is out there and who is not. anything that's existential from your perspective right now in terms of where they are from an injury standpoint?
No, Ryan Walters said officially on Monday that Purdue will be without cornerback Nyland Green and wide receiver CJ Smith for the opener.
Yeah.
That's official. They will not participate in that game. Nyland Green has a foot issue, and Smith has a hamstring issue. They're thought to be back or hope to be back for the Notre Dame game. We'll see. Two starters, Allen. Probably not going to need him to beat Indiana State, but he's certainly going to need him thereafter. They're talented players, two transfers, Georgia. So other than that, Allen, a lot of bumps and bruises. Ryan said most of these guys, if there were games, they could get on the field and play. So yeah, and then again, it's probably been a list of upwards of 10 guys every practice that have been out. It's probably pretty similar across America.
Yeah, I think so.
Sometimes fans get a little carried away. They think it's a mass unit and the sky's falling and the season's over. And again, there's some precaution here too. They don't want to, if guys tweak something, why push it, Allen? You got to get to game week. You got to keep people healthy. So I think there's a little bit of caution exercised by the staff too. And heck, Allen, on Wednesday, they gave one player the day off.
Yeah.
Jamal Edgerrin, I was told, got a veteran day, a vet day.
I love that term.
So again, why not, right? That's the kid who got hurt last August and missed a year. So they're trying to be smart with these guys. They get it, they understand it. And as you know, Allen, you've been around here a long time. The depth at Purdue is never going to be like the depth at Ohio State or Michigan or Penn State. So when they lose players, they start dipping into the second ranks. There's typically a drop off. So staying healthy at Purdue is very important, as we all know.
The days of salt pills and two-a-days and going over to West Side for your practices, those days. And I'm not making fun of Jamal Edgerrin. I just think that's the world we're in today now. And you hear coaches talk all the time about, it has been a very different thing, and more practice is not better. It's keeping guys healthy, keeping them fresh. That is certainly the words of the day as you look at college football anymore. Is that, and I think Purdue's no different.
The phrase now, to steal it from the NBA, Allen, load management.
Yeah.
Fancy way of saying taking it easy, taking a day off. Load management. So yeah, it's a very much a different world from the 80s, even probably if they were going 2 days when Drew Brees was here.
They were absolutely Camp Tiller.
Yeah, the late 90s. So or in the early 2000s. I guess that's been 25 years old. What am I thinking?
Oh, I know. No,
It seems like it was yesterday.
2 days, almost all the way through it, probably into early Daryl Hazel. I'm thinking, but I could be wrong. But it's a relatively new phenomenon.
Yeah, to me, it seems like the Breeze era was just yesterday. That's been 25 years. Human Nestle. But anyway, so yeah, those days are over, and people are trying to practice smarter. You can't hit as much, obviously, a lot of thud tempo.
Yeah.
So, if you don't practice something, you're usually not that good at it, Alan. So tackling usually suffers early in the season. You got missed tackles. You got to do it to get better at it, no matter what it is. So it's just a sacrifice you have to make to keep guys healthy. I mean, with the college games moving more toward the NFL from a practice standpoint, especially, they're being smart about the contact and whatnot. But like I said, you sacrifice really being game sharp, obviously, if you're not taking guys to the ground or playing at full force, but you just can't afford to do that, right? Heck, a lot of times guys get hurt in non-contact drills, ends their season. So yeah, again, I think we may see spring football even move more toward an OTA type style, I'm told. So maybe there'll be an evolution at that segment of the calendar as well. So yeah, you just want to stay healthy, and then have your best weapons available and take your best shot once that ball gets kicked off here.
Yeah, you think about the NFL, and of course, JJ McCarthy out for the year. I mean, you don't want any of these teams, the Vikings obviously don't want to have any of these guys. You don't want to lose them before you go. And there are certain guys on this team, as your list of your top 30 whittles down to the last 5 or 6. Yeah, there are guys. I'm thinking in your top 10, almost all those guys. Boy, if you're Purdue, you can't afford to lose those guys if you're going to stay competitive. Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair statement. Would you say?
Yeah, Alan, it's like the NFL. Every team's got a core. A football team's got a core of about 10 or 12 guys, right? Those are your dudes.
Yeah.
And the other guys, they're kind of, I'm not going to call them fill-in guys, but a lot of times they're guys. They're valuable players, but uh, they're not real difference makers, if you will. And we all know who Purdue's guys are, right? The guys that need to stay healthy and produce. And when they play well, they tend to elevate the level of play by everybody else. Alan, I always think back to Breeze and think of the wide receivers he played with for the most part. There was nobody really special, especially like in 98, 99 with Isaac Jones and guys like that,
Yeah.
Chris Daniels. My goodness. My point is he made everybody better. And that's what we obviously know what difference makers are like. So yeah, you got to keep Dylan Thieneman, Gus Hartwig, Marcus Bowe, Cater Jenkins will help. Devin Mockabee, some of those, Max Clare, I think CJ Smith and Jamal Edgerrin are, and then getting Nyland Green back too, Alan, the cornerback. So yeah. And special teams too, my friend. I always get peppered with questions about special teams. And special teams is kind of was Alan. Everybody kind of threw a blanket over it last year and said
Yeah.
it didn't all stink last year. It was the
No.
kicking that's
Yeah.
struggling.
Field
That's
goal
what
kicking.
people's heads. And it's obviously the most apparent thing to everybody when you're missing field goals. Everybody, here we go. But
You did have a kick return for a touchdown last year. You had some decent punt returns at times. No, I agree with you. And you've been good to point that out.
Yeah, the coverages were solid too, and they forced, I think, as more fumbles than anybody on their kickoff coverage team. But again, the kicking is going to be the headline of any special teams unit, and the jury's still out, Alan. We're not going to know until Saturdays when they flip the lights on over there, about a half mile from where I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
I think they want Spencer Porath to win the job, the true freshman. We'll see. It is his job to lose, I believe. Ben Freehill is for lack of a better term, money in the bank, a guy who's done it before. Ben struggled early last year, went 1 for 4, had a blood clot issue, if you remember.
Right.
Next, we went with Julio Macias, who really struggled. Then Ben came back, Alan, and really finished well. If you go back and look at the stats, he finished the season hitting like 4 of his last 5, I believe. So they've always got Freehill, is my point. So he's sort of a safety net, if you will, if Porath doesn't work out as a true freshman. And so, yeah, we'll see in the return game too, Alan. Watch for Dylan Thieneman. I think Dylan Thieneman is going to be your punt return man. And that really excites me. I'm not saying he's Cooper DeJean of Iowa, if you remember him last year.
Sure
But
do.
and there's a lot of similarities between those two players, Alan. Cooper was a heck of a punt returner, man. What a weapon. Why not, Alan, if you're coaching flag football at Cumberland Elementary School, Alan, you got your kids in front of you. You have them all run 40-yard dashes and go through their cone drills. You know the 4 or 5 kids who are special, and you want the ball in their hands. You want the ball in Dylan Thieneman's hands because he's one of those kind of guys.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting. We all talk about the injury front, and you don't want guys getting dinged up. But guys are looking today, and this is nothing great analysis. Guys today are looking for opportunities to showcase their talents. Mm-hmm. And Dylan Thieneman may be an NFL DB, maybe.
He is.
But he also needs to show he can play on special teams and do other things. These are all things that kids today may want in their resume as they move ahead. And I'm not saying he's doing it solely for that reason. I'm sure Dylan Thieneman seems to be the team guy, and they want to make an impact in returning kicks. And the first thing you want to do in returning kicks is catch the football.
Yes,
and he can do that. And yet, I think that's an interesting move. And I think if you're Purdue, you want to keep Dylan healthy, but you also need to make plays.
You do. You're right. Catch the ball first. That's what guys like Jackson Anthrop are so good at.
Yeah. I always forgot that little detail.
And then they've got Andrew Sawinski, who's almost Jackson Anthrop part 2. He can always field punts for you too. But you like a guy that can bring some juice back there. Thieneman can do more than just field a punt. He can make plays with the ball. At least that's the hope. Like a Charlie Jones. I'm not saying he's Charlie Jones for goodness sakes, but maybe he can make some plays. And Dylan Thieneman, yes, Alan, Dylan Thiemann is only going to be here for 3 years. He's got this year next. He's going to go pro early. He's probably going to be a first-round draft choice. Yes, I know there's an injury risk when you're returning punts, but who knows what's going to happen to you in life, right? You can't worry about that. You just got to go play. And he was a great coverage guy last year, Alan. I remember some of the big hits he would lay guys out on. Chris Petrelli tells me he loves special teams. They only have him on one. He'd like to play on more for obvious reasons, but he, as you said, Alan, he's a team guy. And when a guy like that is like that, and I'm standing on the sidelines, I watch Dylan Thieneman. If he's doing that stuff, Alan, I ask myself, what am I doing?
Yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you, you can't have enough when you're still trying to establish yourself as Ryan Walters is, and that's not a criticism. That's the reality of year two. And you have all these new bodies, some of them very talented, or at least come in with high recruiting pedigrees. You need guys that show them the way and show you what that expectation is. And I think that's what I like about that. Dylan Thieneman didn't waste any time showing, as a true freshman, showing everybody the way last year. I think you gotta take calculated risks in this world, and especially when you sit where Purdue does in the marketplace. You need to do that. You need to let your playmakers make plays. And
Alan, he could win him a game with a punt return.
Yeah, and Purdue's going to be in some close games. Ones that they can win. There are going to be some tight ones. We know that heading down the road. Okay, you wrote a story this week about the Georgia swagger and the guys that came in. Of course, a couple of them will be out for the opener, but just to talk about. We've kind of talked about the fact that if you put Purdue's Purdue's recruiting rankings of the top 22 players, they'd be higher than it's been in a long time, because you've got guys from Georgia that were four, and they've got a couple 5-stars roaming around as well. But what do you think those guys bring to the table? I mean, outside the obvious, they know what it takes to be on a team that's played for a national championship or played at that level. What do you sense that can mean to this 2024 team?
Yeah, they bring in that instant credibility just because of where they came from. Program that won 2 national titles, the elite of the elite, Allen, and that's going to earn you initial respect. Then you got to do something. Players are watching you, Allen. They're watching you in the weight room. They're watching you in meeting rooms. They're watching you on the practice field. That's where you're really going to have to earn it, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, it sounds like they've delivered on that front too, with how they've conducted themselves and how they've worked. And Ryan Walters said, when we asked him about these players in the portal that come and visit, that he always vets the player's host. Well, obviously, it makes a lot of sense, right? You're gonna go, hey, tell me, what was this kid really like when he's away from the building? And some guys will say, well, coach, he's all about the money, man. And Ryan says that's not the kind of guy they want. And so I think he's pleased with who he got out. And I know for sure these are players he would not have been able to get last year, because just where the Boilermaker Alliance was at overall. But again, I think he understands these are guys that can help take that program, or take this program, to the next level. That's the hope, at least, right? I put a chart in that story with listed every transfer. I think there's 20 overall, Alan. That's including a few walk-ons. So 20 transfers. That's
crazy.
And then you add in the freshmen, right? And a couple of junior college players too. And again, talking about a lot of new faces here, but these transfers really have to lead the way, because they're veterans. Their bodies are already mature. They play a little bit of football. Some of them played a lot of football at a high level. So in these Georgia guys, I know it's been a fun story, Alan. There was just kind of coincidental. They all happened to come together. It wasn't a planned exodus from Athens to West Lafayette. It worked out like it worked out. And like I said, they're 4 key guys this year. CJ Madden off the edge, 2 receivers, CJ Smith to Nylon Morissette. And then I talked about Nylan Green, the big 6'1" cornerback. He's going to be cornerback 1, Alan. He's got that look. 6 foot, 6'1", about 190, 200 pounds. Those type of cornerbacks, guys who can run, who are that big, are rare.
Yeah, and certainly going to be something that can make a difference if Purdue's going to make a difference or make a splash this year. Okay, last question. It's a tough one in terms of what do you watch for in the next next week heading into, then you'll be into game week after that. But any other
Yeah.
storylines or things that you'd like to know answers to, if you can get them, and that's another question. But heading into that game week, anything else that's really left out that you're not sure what you're going to see, or the things that remain to be seen?
Yeah, Ryan's pretty good. We get to talk to him once a week.
Yeah.
He's pretty forthright. We've been talking to him on Mondays, and they're going to practice Saturday and Sunday. They're going to be off on Monday, Alan, first day of classes, my friend. Make sure you've got your mini fridge bought. And
Yeah.
They're
all at the Walmart these days in West Lafayette. We know that.
What kind of a poster you hung up in your dorm room at Cary Quad? If you had a lava lamp. But
and they're buying those things these days, by the way. I hate to break it to you.
I rented them.
30-some years later.
I rented my.
There are no Farrah Fawcett posters, though. None of those. So that's what I know.
That's a nice dated reference. I like that. Now you're
you and I are good at that. That's all. Maybe all I'm good at, but that's what I am.
What am I looking for? First of all, real quick, too, the Purdue got a commitment this last week.
Yeah.
Two linebacker from Fort Wayne, a 2025 kid, Sam Stewart. Kept waiting for him to go public. We knew he'd committed. Sort of a late find, a real fast kid, 6'2", 205, the kind of guy you can redshirt. Kind of guy Purdue needs to get that's in state, Alan. I think he's a Big Ten football player with a couple years of development. They're supposed to get a commitment next week, maybe on Monday, too, from a 2026 kid. But what am I watching for from the team as we get into the school year here? I guess still the continued development of that receiving corps. It's been a real skeleton crew. I talked about no CJ Smith. Cam Brown's been out. And also they've been without Jaden Dixon-Veal for a couple of practices, who's been kind of running with the starters. I think they like Jerron Tibbs a lot, number 13 from Cathedral. I think he's got a bright future. Like I said, I think they really are kind of eyeballing him. He's not a real game breaker. He's a big receiver. Move the chains, kind of a Chris Daniels kind of guy. He's not going to run past the defense. And so watch those receivers develop. And defensively, I think continue watching those edge rushers, replacing Scorton and KJ off the edges is going to be big too. Can they get that pass rush? Can they get sacks? Can a guy like CJ Madden help them? We'll see. And I guess those are a couple of things off the top of my head. Just stay healthy, right?
Yeah.
Just stay healthy. They're getting in that school year mode now. I think they're going to start practice a little bit earlier even now as the school year starts on Monday. And yeah, things are getting more serious. You talked about the ticket sales. I'm not sure where they're at with Indiana State, but I bet it's going to be a pretty nice crowd just because people are excited for football. First game, right? And there's a lot of unknowns. Yeah. As much as we write and talk and visit with people and the little bit we watch, we still really don't know, Alan.
Yeah.
Our vision is narrow, but that's all we've got, and we try to share what we see, but no big revelation. The truth will come out shortly here. Once they turn on, like I always say, the lights on old Ross-Ade Stadium, and the stands get filled up.
You know what? It starts and then it goes boom, 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 and next thing you know, it's November the 22nd or whatever night they're playing at Michigan State. I mean, it's just the way it is. And that Friday night in East Lansing, which you'll have to have your warm clothes on for that one, at least walking into Spartan Stadium, but that'll be part of the fun. All right, Tom, thanks so much as always. Great stuff as well. Not too many dated references this time. We did well with that. We have a lot of fun doing this, and Tom does a great job of bringing that all to you. All right, reminder, you can join. We're going to have some special promotions also. If you haven't signed up for GoldandBlack.com, think about it, because game week, you'll see some special promotions going on, some incentives. If Tom Dienhart's writing and Brian Neubert's writing isn't enough, or Knucklehead Central isn't enough, maybe a little bit of cash incentive will help you to join us, because if you're watching us on YouTube, Tom does amazing work on the site. He actually writes for a living. He talks well, but he writes for a living, as does Brian. And occasionally, even me, I try to put something in there. We have some fun doing that. So please think about joining us.
We got the iconic Mike Carmen back in the saddle too.
Right, Mike Carmen's going to be joining us. We got the big staff meeting at the Ripple, one of our sponsors, next Friday. You're not welcome to join us, though. I hate to break it. It's a closed meeting with the four of us, but
Yeah.
well, you can come and say hi if you're there. But we look forward to that as well. So, thanks to the Union Club Hotel, another great place to have a bite to eat and have a cup of coffee or a cocktail at the Boiler Up Bar. We appreciate them. And we'll look forward to what will be our August 24th edition. And I'm sure we will be hearing more from Tom Dienhart next week on our Saturday Simulcast. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. Thanks again for taking the time to join us. And hopefully we enlightened you with something. I know we did. And we'll look forward to more football and basketball talk next week. Have a good one, all. Thank you.